Hi everyone, and thank you for visiting Heartcraftpaper. Today you're going to be learning how to make a rosette wand using the Friendship Grows from Stamper's Delight. My name is Monica of Heartcraftpaper. We're going to begin our project by coloring in our images. For this particular project, I decided to go with my Prismacolor pencils, just because I like the delicateness that it has when you color in your images. I also like just how blendable they are. The thing about these color pencils are that they can blend by themselves. You don't need any other type of blending tool, although from time to time I do like to use that because it helps to flatten out some of those teeth that are in the paper and drags that color all the way across. You also don't need to use Gamble if you're utilizing this particular type of pencil, which is the Prismacolor, because it is wax-based. One of the things you have to remember when utilizing color pencils is that pressure actually is quite significant when you're coloring. That just allows how much color is actually going to go down onto your paper. So if you want more pigmentation to your coloring, of course you're going to press harder. You're probably wondering why I decided to make a wand for my craft this time. Well, from time to time I like to give out gifts, and a wand actually makes a very nice embellishment for a gift wrapping. That, or even in and of itself, it will be a beautiful gift. I also find that these are really fun to make. You know, they're an easy craft that even kids can make if you help them, and you know, it gets a lot of detail in there as well. You can add tons of embellishments to it. So here I have my cutout pieces. There's one of two ways that you can actually go about making these. If you have a die cutting machine like I do, I have a Cricut in particular, this makes it a lot easier because you can find some really nice rosette cutouts, such as this that has a nice flower border. And the other thing is that it comes scored all the way across. Very simple. The other option that you have is to cut out strips of paper, and this particular piece of paper is cut out to 4.5 by 1 3/4. You can also use a nice little border die to create edging, which is actually perfect. Here I have the border die that I use. Now this is from Lawn Fawn, and as you can see, it has some piercing. All you have to do is lay this all across the top of your paper, get it as close to the edge as possible. You want to make sure that the arches, if you're using a scallop, so that the piece cuts out in full. Now just make sure that as you lay this down, you utilize something to secure your die down, such as a piece of washi that I have here. Now we're just ready to pass this through the machine and die cut. Here you have it. It's all nice, neat, and it's got a simple border. The next step in this process is to score our rosette piece. I'm going to lay this with the flat side up against the top of my scoreboard, and I'm going to start scoring every 1/2 inch, starting with 4, 3.5, 3, so on and so forth. All of our score marks in place. So let's take a look. I hope you can see that. They're nice, neat, and even, ready for folding. Now all you have to do is repeat the process with the other pieces that are left. Okay, I'm going to clean these up a bit. If you notice, I have a little bit of an excess here on the side, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim all along that score line. Now this is nice, neat, and even. We're about to get folding here, but I wanted to show you the paper itself. If you notice, this is the reverse of the other die cut that I have, and this is neat because it's the coordinating papers. Again, simply fold along the score lines, which is pretty simple, and there you go. Once we get everything nice and folded, we'll go ahead and start adhering these together, and it will be one long piece. Now, what I like about the measurements that I had for this particular cut were the fact that it came out to a perfect up curve and down curve, as you can see here, that I'm able to easily glue them together without having to cut any pieces off. Here's my long strip, and now I just have to complete the circle by closing both ends together. Once you've done your gluing, you'll want to get your accordion folds nice, neat, and accentuated. And here, as you can see, we've flipped it over and created our little rosette. We're ready to go. This has created a nice, neat detail, as you can see. It doesn't always have to be perfect though. Continuing on with our next piece, we're going to follow the same steps of folding, gluing, and making our rosette and accentuating those folds, since they tend to actually flatten out as you work. Now you're probably wondering what type of paper this is. Now this is the Fashionista print from Echo Park. They recently had a sale, which is pretty neat, so I got this paper. I'll be linking everything in the description below. Our sentiment and image pieces. The first thing that I'm going to do is set up my sentiment. Now I printed this out and cut it with my Cricut, of course, onto this nice little bubble sentiment piece, or label if you'd like. I'm going to adhere the actual sentiment piece down onto the drop shadow utilizing double-sided foam tape. Just be careful when adhering this down that you get it nice and center before you press down. Here I have the base for my image and my sentiment. Now I wanted to go with a little bit of a different color, but within the same color scheme. So this was a printed aqua. I want to lay these out just so I get them where I want them. I figured that this is going to be actually fairly big. I want some of that color popping through, so the images and the sentiment are going to be slightly offset. Now let's get gluing. Actually, I was going to adhere my flowers to the base piece right behind it, but I figured they were too pretty to cover up so much, so I brought them onto my sentiment and adhered them down. The sentiment is going to be offset to the right, so it allows space for my image to be adhered. Just be careful with your adhering that you don't go over the edge of your base piece. And that does it. Moving on, we are now ready to actually form our rosettes. You're gonna place them flat down and hold them in place. You're gonna utilize your glue gun and add a large drop of glue in the center. Once you've got the glue down, you're going to go ahead and squeeze together. Now I'm offsetting this up to the top so I have space to put in my second rosette. Again, this can be a little bit tricky if you're not used to it, but as you can see, I'm putting in plenty of glue and then squeezing that together. I'm going to hold it in place until the glue sets enough for me to be able to lift away. Make sure you don't lift away too soon. Otherwise, your rosette will spread and you'll have to start all over again. So here's a tip when you're making your rosettes and you're cutting out your strips of paper. You want to make it so that it is half the width of your circle or your rosette. So this is measuring 5. I'm going to cut the strips to 2.5. Simple. Now, while I'm waiting here and holding this in place, I'm going to go ahead and remove that second rosette. All you have to do is twist it back and forth until it comes off the mat. Once we're done here, we're going to be working the back of our rosette. We don't want that big blob of glue to show. So here, I'm going to be utilizing a little bit of tulle to create a nice little pleat and create some additional decoration to my rosette. I used the hot glue gun to lay down some glue and then just pleated the tool all around the circle here. Just be careful and take your time so that you don't burn any fingers. Now, here I'm halfway through and I am utilizing just a little bit of glue at a time and then making sure I'm arranging nicely. Now just make sure you set up your tool in a way that it's easy for you to pull it off the spool, because this gives me a little bit of work to begin with. Now I'm going to create a closing pleat, which means that I'm just going to simply fold it over on itself and then trim it out. We're now ready to glue this onto our rosette. If you notice, I'm putting the pattern sides that match together so that we have the opposite on the other side. This covered up our glue very well on the opposite side. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this out. Initially, I started with maybe about 2 inches from the rosette, but then I decided maybe 1 inch would be good, and I guess I figured right. So now, for the straw, we need a handle for our wand and of course the wand piece. I have this wide straw that I utilized, and as you can see here, I am just going to flatten out that top bit so that it sits nicely within the grooves that we have created in our pleats for the rosette. Now, time to glue that down. As I set this in place, I'm just going to flatten that out just a bit. Time to glue in our top rosette, our second rosette, which is the black and white one. But first, I want to add some ribbon. So I have some polka dot ribbon here in a salmon and a peach color. I'm going to utilize maybe about 10 to 11 inches of this. So yeah, I guess that's right, about 10 to 11 inches. I just snipped that at an angle so that the ends would be at an angle. And then I glued this down in a way so that the printed sides would be facing up. Careful not to burn your fingers as you do this. Time to set it in place. Just a little dab of glue. And now we're ready to put in our black and white rosette. Be sure to add plenty of glue and press down firmly. We're now ready to put on our sentiment and images. Now I'm going to put this down a little bit further down since it's fairly large and covers the majority of our black and white rosette. I do want it to peek out from behind a little bit. So here you have it. I'm going to add in a couple of embellishments, some pearls as well as some rhinestones, and we should be done. And here you have it, a gorgeous little gift or decoration that you might want to give. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope to see you next time. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. For more videos and tutorials like these, don't forget to subscribe. Visit the blog for more information at www.heartcraftpaper.com. Thanks for watching Heartcraft Paper.